Now, just before I go to Tim Blair, I wanted to bring you up to speed with a news story that took my attention over the past couple of days. Certainly Tim Blair has noticed it as well. It relates to electric vehicles and fires on the high seas. Have a look.
In the Pacific, near Alaska, a ghost ship left to burn. All crew forced to abandon the Morning Midas when the vessel caught alight, while transporting 3,000 cars from China to Mexico, 800 electric vehicles supercharging the blaze. The rise in popularity of EVs and hybrids seeing thousands more shipped to our shores. Transportation of these vehicles coming with a greater risk. But Ports Australia says there is no set plan nationally for if such an event like this were to unfold closer to home.
Yeah, what a shocker. They got 22 crew off the ship, but it's just floating out there burning now. Let's go to the Wimmer and catch up with Tim Blair from the Daily Telegraph. Good to talk to you again, Tim. You've written about this in your column. The point about this is it's a horrible situation, but it's certainly not the first of its kind.
Yeah, we've had a few EV-loaded ships either bursting aflame and being hauled into port, or sinking in one case. 3,000 vehicles on board, or multiple thousands of vehicles on board in one case, and an entire ship going to the bottom of the ocean, Chris. I can't think it's good for the environment. I can't think that's a happy thing. If in fact, if this was anything else other than EVs, sacred EVs, you'd imagine there'd be a great deal of complaint from the eco community about what a destructive and terrible thing this was. Instead, people are largely silent from that eco zone.
Exactly, and all the fumes that are being released before it sinks as it burns, and we've talked before about the EV and electric vehicle fires, the smaller vehicles, golf carts and scooters and the like, all the fires that have caused fatalities around the country. Again, not enough focus on that. And look, to expand on your point about the silence, the Los Angeles, the Democrats in California are typically very much into climate change and reducing emissions, but at the moment they're setting fire to cars. That's how much they're worried about emissions.
It's not just any old cars either. They're setting fire to cars that are known as Waymos. These are driverless vehicles that several US cities have, and it's basically you dial them up like an Uber, they show up. So our happy, liberation-friendly destroyers in Los Angeles, they dialed up the Waymos just so they could have. It's basically like, bring the firewood over here. We need to build a fire. So they just got these poor little Waymo cars that are basically like, if you remember the movie WALL-E, they dial up a bunch of Wallies, bring them over to their neighbourhood and set fire to them just because they've shown up. It's incredibly destructive. I mean, as well, these things are meant to, obviously, to reduce traffic issues and reduce congestion. That's always an issue in Los Angeles. They're self-driving. They don't need to park anywhere. They just keep moving. And as a reward for that nice community behaviour, they get set fire to. Just charming.
Look, honestly, when it comes to energy, climate change, renewable energy, all the rest of it, common sense goes out the window. I reminded people of this stuff pre-election that we showed at the top of the program.
Will be leading the global green hydrogen revolution. And what we know is that the green hydrogen sector has an enormous potential in this country. Only Labor has the plan to ensure that Australia is part of and is leading that hydrogen revolution.
I mean, they just say this stuff, Tim. They just think if they keep saying it, it might be true. I mean, they never even asked about it. Meanwhile, project after project falls over. The ones that say they're going ahead are too expensive, and our energy prices just go up and up.
Well, they're not lying, though. They're not lying, Chris. Green hydrogen has potential. That is true. That has always been true. It'll be true 10 years from now. It has potential. It will always have an eternal amount of potential. In the meantime, this is going to drive me nuts until the day I die, is the craziness of living in a country with more energy resources than practically any other, yet the most expensive energy costs. We just deny everything that exists around us. We turn our backs on coal, gas, uranium, as you mentioned earlier in the previous interviews, and instead we believe in green hydrogen.
We won't use any of the stuff we got, but we're banking on the green hydrogen revolution. It is the stupidest nation on earth at the moment. Thanks for joining us, Tim. I'm going to have to put Tim Blair in charge. We need him as Energy and Climate Change Minister, although he might reject the second part of that title. Let's just make him Energy Minister.